My name is Michele Brocco, and today I will talk about two things. First, about digital workshop. So the first part will be about digital workshop. The second part about silent innovation, which is basically a way to show that there is not just the innovation we are used about, like the one where interacting via audio and this kind of noisy interaction, but there is also innovation happening in the silence. So this is also a thing that we as facilitators or innovation experts should be aware of, and we should also have a tool in terms of a methodology to take out all the potential of this silent innovation. So yeah, and I will guide you through my slides here in the next half an hour, and yes, I hope you will find it very useful. So first, yeah, about us, the company I founded with my former workmates at TU Munich is called Receptors. We have researched about 10 years about how to improve collaboration via IT and not just use IT as a necessary evil, as it's often the case. And after founding, we have basically started developing our solution and facilitating this digital workshop. Now it's the 8th year that our company exists. So to start with, I want to define what we understand, what is behind a workshop. So a workshop is a gathering of people that work together to perform practical work in a subject or activity as it's defined. So the main focus resides in the workshops that we are talking about creative problem solving. So people talking together, exchanging ideas, and if required, at the end, make also decisions. So basically selecting what comes out of this creative problem solving part. So this is the workshop I will talk about today. And just to tell you what other workshops are there. There are other workshops, like workshops to build up trust, to get to know each other, or kickoff workshops. Or there are workshops, for example, where somebody wants to get out of the crowd and say and show, for example, to the principal, hey, it's me, you know, I'm here. And so this is another kind of workshop. Or if you want, for example, to have a workshop, we see this in enterprises every day, where maybe the outcome is more or less known beforehand, but you want all people to be there and all people to listen to what you propose, and to have like an engagement from all these people sitting there. So there are different kind of workshops. These workshops I mentioned last, we are not talking about. We're really talking about workshops where you know the people, so you don't need to build up trust, and you need the results. So results are the focus of the workshop. So just to show you what this kind of workshops may be, so that you can have an imagination, is basically workshop is a term that is very well known, but on the other hand, this kind of creative problem solving is in a workshop is done daily, actually. When you think about, okay, what should I do next? Maybe I have something to discuss with my workmates, or I need to prioritize and to rank topics. For instance, what should we do next week? Or what are very hot topics now we should bring in our newsletter, for example, for marketing purposes. So any kind of things where you wouldn't use analytics to solve it, right? So every kind of problem where you need other people to discuss or to exchange ideas, this is the workshops we are talking about. So the first question is, yeah, why do we need workshops with digital technologies at all? And this is a typical workshop initiative that we have experienced dozens or even hundreds of times, is in, especially obviously in large enterprises, is when someone needs a topic to be discussed or needs input Then one colleague asked the other, yeah, maybe do you know how we should do this and that, or do you have an idea how we could solve this and this? And then your colleague sitting next to you maybe says, no, maybe we need input from person X, Y, Z, and yeah, we definitely need his input. We should plan a workshop in Q4, and every time I see this, I think, are you serious? Waiting months for results? This is in business unimaginable. I mean, we are in the innovation business, and we need, as we all know, innovation is going very fast. So we need to solve problems, even on a small case, not just about big innovations, but maybe process improvements, or solving smaller issues. We need to do this fast, right? So yeah, but the reality is that we cannot conduct this workshop as often as we would need to, right? Because I mean, Anna has mentioned it in the introduction. Right now is a situation, for instance, where participants cannot travel, so we simply cannot organize workshops at all. But also, in under normal circumstances, there is always a bottleneck in resources. The organization costs hours or days, participating obviously as well. Then you have to plan your trip. You have to get to the destination where you meet other persons. And last but not least, it's also an effort to take all the documentation, write down everything. So as we see, it's very, very time consuming, and we cannot do like normal workshops all the time. So that's why we use digital technologies in general. But still, as probably, I don't know, maybe a lot of people present nowadays will agree with me that online technologies to do this kind of things are quite unpopular, unfortunately. And why is the case? And I totally agree that they're unpopular. And if we see, this is, by the way, a real example. It's not something made up. And probably you have something like this in all your mailboxes, is when in absence of adequate tools, people start to do like brainstorming and workshopping via email. And this is, for instance, a brainstorming about master thesis topics. And as you can see, it lasts forever. I mean, it's almost 2 days, and this is just a small part of the discussion. And where are the ideas here? Okay, inside the email, but where exactly? Where in the text? And who evaluated this idea? So what is the outcome of this discussion? It's really an overflow of text and mixed up stuff, and there is no documentation, and it's obvious that it's totally inadequate, and makes people frustrated doing things like this. Or other things we have seen is participant brainstorming and evaluating ideas via team chats or chats. This is, by the way, is a brainstorming done via chat. And as you can see here, it's the overview is completely lost. So you don't know where here in these lines, where are the ideas, where are the contributions. Then somebody here says in the middle of the discussion, no, that's a bad idea, and so on. And you see here people already criticizing in the middle of the flow. And yeah, this is not very effective. And the most popular approach to bring the workshop into the digital world are web conferencing, or yeah, online conferencing systems, or web meetings that are actually designed for a presentation and webinars like we are doing now. There is one guy talking and you listening, and that's what this kind of systems are designed for, and they are very good at it. But the problem is, once we start communicating with each other, then it gets very difficult for someone to facilitate the discussion. And as a result, some people will talk, some people, or most of them, will not talk because somebody else is doing it. So we have to wait for free slot to talk. And moreover, there are several problems that are always present also in the face-to-face interaction, which cause participants to be silenced, and also participants to lean back. What are these kind of effects? Yeah, these are normal issues happening in every kind of unfacilitated collaboration. So if there is no facilitation, we experience in workshops very, very often such negative effects, such as dominance of specific participants, premature criticism, or people, or some might maybe not be very, very good at expressing its own ideas. Some is not very proficient in the language, for example, or it turns out during exchanging of ideas that endless discussions arise and so on. And these things usually are tackled by a facilitator, but it's, as you can see here, there are so many things, it's very difficult for a facilitator to address all of them. And this gets even worse in the digital world, because in the digital world, the facilitator has even less control of this kind of things. And these effects have already been investigated decades ago, and it's called process losses of brainstorming. And I have here just some of the citation, which I would also very recommend to you, where researchers have shown in the past what happens if these process losses are not addressed. For instance, I want here just to mention some of them. The most important thing is production blocking, which I more or less also mentioned some slides ago. This is the effect of people having to wait to express their ideas. And researchers have shown that this accounts for 66% of variance in the brainstorming activities. So because people cannot work in parallel and they have to wait for their slot to talk, they have to wait and their creative flow is stopped. And this is a very, very bad thing. We cannot work in parallel. So this is a thing we can address with in workshops in general, but also in digital workshops. Or another thing also is social inhibition and social influence. Some persons feel uncomfortable in a large group and they don't want to explore, they cannot express their ideas. Moreover, there is also the problem that maybe some of the participants can influence other participants, and that's not what we want in workshops, right? We want everybody an equal and fair way to contribute its own ideas, and this has already been discussed and in the past research. Also, another thing is social loafing. We have seen web meetings with dozens of participants. And as you know, also from your workshops on site, the more persons there are, the less each person contributes. So we really need to keep also small groups. And this is even worse, obviously, in the online world, because everybody can hide behind his PC and check his emails and so on and so forth. I will not go into detail into the other things because they are also somehow self-explanatory, the other terms. But yeah, this is when you want to go into the digital world. And digital world, by the way, does not only mean online world, so distributed world. It means in the so you're using a digital media to perform your workshops. You can try to address those, because IT can help you to address this process losses. So our approach when we were investigating all these things at TUM was to digitally transform workshops. A digital transformation, as we all know, does not mean that we take something from the analog world and just digitize it. It means we have also to change the process. We can't just bring the things and make them digital, we have also to change the process. And this was our approach. So to use digitalization to reduce time to results by addressing these process losses I mentioned before. And obviously the digital tools in general reduce traveling because you can do it also online in case. And also the documentation of results is basically automatic. And we want to cut down also the time to results to in average one hour. So how did we do this? Yeah, as I mentioned, we try to address the process losses mentioned before. As an example here, I will just show one of those is how to eliminate production blocking. Yeah, we eliminated production blocking by introducing so-called silent brainstormings. And that's where this silent innovation from the title of the topic comes in, by simply disabling audio during the contribution phase. So this is a thing you can do obviously also in your on-site workshops, for instance, using the brainwriting technique, which addresses this effect very, very well. And as you can see also from this chart, I think it should be obvious to all of you. Before, people working sequentially, so each color here is one participant, so participant orange, participant blue, and so on, suddenly can work in parallel, and they will have more contributions and participate more just by disabling this audio channel in this phase, so in the idea generation phase. And the same way, oh, sorry for this layout issue here, and the same way we addressed production blocking, we also addressed all the single process losses were identified in the past by research, and we identified during our pivoting and bootstrapping. And this is, by the way, it can be done obviously by all people that want to make digital workshops in general. But we then implemented this in our own systems accordingly. And we evaluated whether what we have done makes sense and produces the same results as basically in the past research or not. And we have conducted a study at TUM where we have set up two different types of digital workshops. So on the left, you see like people standing around a multi-touch table and performing a digital workshop on site using multi-touch technologies. Then we have set up here teams working on a web interface. So these people were not from the same team, obviously, but it was like a simulation of a distributed setting. And last but not least, we had also for comparison, we had like face-to-face workshops as a similar setting as in the past studies of Diehl and Strobe and so on, the one that I've cited before. And yeah, what was the outcome? We checked for, among other things, obviously, we checked the number of ideas in comparison also with different techniques, because it also makes a difference what kind of methodology and creativity technique, for instance, you use. And as you can see here in this chart, the orange and red items are the digital workshops with touch interface and with web interface. And the blue is the on-site co-located paper style workshop. And for the brain writing and random word creativity techniques, which are techniques where you have basically to generate contributions, the digital workshops statistically significantly outperformed the face-to-face workshop. There was no difference anyway in techniques where you need to combine stuff. So that was also very interesting to see that there is actually no statistical significance between the two. So actually the results are nothing new, but at least they say that the mapping from the pure theory to the implementation worked out as we actually expected. And yeah, this was the end of our research at TUM. And then we thought, okay, now we have to bring these things from theory into practice. And what we started then is first obviously pivoting a lot around usability things and so on and so forth, until we got, like Anna also introduced in the introduction, get to know Nokia, which was our greatest or biggest customer at that time, and where we have deployed it already. And here we have Fabian Schlager, which is the contact person also that Anna knows from projects, that told us that team goals previously achieved in weeks can now be achieved in hours with Idea Cloud. And in addition, obviously, they save a lot of money per workshop because they don't have to travel anymore. So this is actually, obviously, we need to, we don't want to talk about statistics here. We obviously would need a lot of data and so on and so forth, but at least we can say that it's a valid alternative and valid approach. And to just show you how this works in practice, because now I've showed a lot of slides, but maybe you want also to see how it is in practice. I want to first introduce the project that ISBIM and or Receptors and many other partners are part of, which is the project Vision, where we try all together in our consortium to envision the future of teaching and training for creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship. This project is founded by the European Union. It's the Erasmus Plus program. And there we have, as you can see here, it's a large consortium with many people. And we were working just some weeks ago on the topic. We need to brainstorm and select 20 important questions for an interview guideline. So as you can see, getting back to the very first slides where we're introduced what digital workshops we are talking about, this is also a very how do you say, typical example for these daily activities that we have, which do not sound innovative at all, but they are part of our digital workshop concept. And yeah, so I will show you here how we brainstormed these questions. And I have a small video for you. This is how the basically the whiteboard looks like where you work. So here you can see different post-its, as you can imagine from on-site workshops. They look a bit different, and there is also a reason for that. And you just can enter very easily your contribution. You can move the post-its like I will do now, and you can resize them, which is a thing that you cannot do in the physical world, right? And yeah, this is how it works, just to show you. And we've started brainstorming by importing the ideas we had during the past 2 months. So we collected already ideas offline in a sheet, and I imported these ideas for brainstorming. And then we started the digital workshops and had 10 minutes time. And as you can see here, we have had in 10 minutes quite many ideas compared to the 2 months before. So we were really productive, and we also found ideas here on the right for thematic areas where we didn't find ideas before. And then we went in a second step to rank these ideas, because we wanted to know the most important ideas for this interview guideline we were developing. And here all of the participants are in a private workspace, and they can evaluate their ideas on their own. So there is no bias by other participants, because we were all working in silence, so silent innovation again. And yeah, and then we started rating our ideas here. Here we had different categories for each idea, and then yes, and then we evaluated for 15 minutes the ideas, and then yeah, after 15 minutes we were ready. As you can see on the bottom, the people signalized that they were ready, and we were very curious to see what the results were. And then yeah, I finished the concluded the phase, and then finally we had all ideas ranked. So we had all evaluations by all participants of these workshops. I think we were around 12 to 15 participants, as far as I remember, all ranked from a scale from 0 to 4. Then we had here, as you can see, we had different categories we wanted to associate the questions to. And here you have like the average rating, which if you would do this on site and let everybody rate on a scale from 0 to 4, imagine collecting all the ratings, making the mean and so on. It's very, very time consuming. And if you have a digital workshop, you can also facilitate that part of the process. So it's very, very straightforward. And yeah, so in the end, we had our ideas, and interesting and fun fact, we collected 2 months of ideas, or for 2 months, we collected ideas before. But interestingly, the best 5 ideas we had were elaborated by us during the digital workshops and not in the 2 months before. This is obviously also not statistically significant, but at least it shows again it's a valid alternative for certain kind of workshops, as I mentioned before. So we are already at the end of this webinar. I want just to make a brief summary of our core messages. So think about what kind of workshop do you want to have? So what is the goal of your workshop? Do you want to build up trust? Do you want people to get to know each other? Think about what exactly do you want. If your goal is to have fast results, low effort, workshops anytime, anywhere, ad hoc, so in a short time. So think about also using digital workshops, and thereby obviously take a look on the tools you use. And as I've shown during the talk, research and practice show that you can increase even the performance of your normal workshops, and thereby also save costs. So be open to such things. We are in the innovation domain. We are the ones that need to try out new things. So yeah, so thanks for listening, and I hope that I at least that your curiosity now is very, very high to know about it. And if you're still skeptical, which I can totally understand because it's something very new, I can just recommend to contact me, and we will try it out. And I'm sure if you are open to such things, it will be a success. So thanks for listening, and thanks for your time. And yeah, I'm here for a question, obviously.
Thank you very much, Michele. Who are usually your clients? Like, are they big corporations or small companies, NGOs?
Mm-hmm. So wait, I just had the camera here so you can see me again. Yeah, usually the need for distributed teamwork also is higher the more distributed the company is, right? So if you're a small company sitting next to each other, the need for digital collaboration is quite limited. So the bigger the company, the more likely it is that the demand is higher. So yes, so big enterprises are the customers number one. But when a company starts to have hundreds of employees, this topic starts to be also important for them.
Thank you. I also assume that you get feedback, right, from your clients.
Yeah.
And what are usually like the biggest obstacles that they cannot use your platform, and how do you solve that?
Yeah, I would say the biggest issues are from an organizational perspective. So unfortunately, the bigger the company, the more processes and the more responsibility somebody has to take to introduce new software in general. So if you introduce software, obviously many people are afraid that they have to take too much responsibility nowadays. Sometimes it's easier to hire someone for a year, let's say, or a consultant, than introducing a software, because the process is obviously very long. So this is actually the big challenge to that the organizations maybe change also the way they look at digital software. They have to digitalize also the way they do their workshops, for instance, and not just all the other processes that don't that are customer facing, so to say.
Do you offer any trainings, like how to use the platform and so on?
Yeah, yes, there is like for facilitators, we have some small trainings, but participants actually don't need any training at all. So this is also one very important concept that was after research in our pivoting phase, to make the software solution has to be super easy to use, super simple, because people participating in workshops will participate maybe once or twice, and they have not so much time as we facilitator to use a software, right? We facilitators, this is our daily business, and we can really invest time in learning tools, but participants cannot. So it's very important that participants don't need any training to use that.
Thank you very much. And maybe the last question from Maria. So Maria is asking, is there a precise innovation type that these digital workshops aim for, or can they be used for all types of innovation?
Yeah, I would say it's B, so this the second one, and even more, I would say it's, as you know from innovation, for instance, there is if you look at the standard innovation funnel, there are different phases, right? So you would say, for instance, yeah, the fuzzy front end is at the beginning, right? So you do idea generation at the beginning, but what about, for example, of all the phases in between? What about marketing ideas? What about implementation ideas? So I think there is no innovation and no phase of the innovation funnel, and even outside innovation, if we think about Scrum sprints, for example, or marketing ideas. So it's so diverse, and all these things have one thing in common: it's creative teamwork. All these tasks have creative teamwork in mind. So I would say, if this kind of thing exists, and maybe does, I would say the only innovation where this would not fit is innovation that is driven by data analytics or other things that are from a more analytical perspectives, where maybe human interaction or human interaction is not that much into the focus.
Well, thank you very much. And now we will have the last question from Biljana. What about the innovation for highly innovative SMEs? How does this way of silent innovation fit in the culture of small family companies?
So correct me if I understood it wrong, but if I understand it right, you think about like family-driven companies, so the old style. If it's about this, I can say, yeah, well, this is obviously very hard because it's a change process. Like, it's change management, and it's a change process, and it's obviously, as you know, as in all companies, if you put a new red button on your desk for all employees and you have to change this is obviously it's a project. So I'm totally aware of this is very hard to bring, but if the question is what want the enterprise to achieve, if they want to achieve improvements in what they do, then obviously they have also, and this is not just related to digital workshops, by the way, but it's related to any kind of change. Then if they want to achieve something, they have to try out something, and then you have to convince them, like saying, you have what is the state of the art? What kind of problem you have now? Can we solve this by applying digital workshops? Yes or no? And then you have to try it out. But if obviously the company does not want to try it out at all, obviously you can't do miracles, right? I mean, you can try to convince them by getting out the fact. And this is what we actually are also trying to foster a lot. Concentrate on real facts and not about other things. There is also a very interesting article about the myth of brainstorming, where people really feel very good about brainstormings, but if you look what comes out, unfortunately, it's not always the best they could have achieved. So yeah, this is a very hard thing if somebody does not want to try out new things. Yeah.
But do you have any of success stories that you could share with us?
For the family-driven companies?
Or in general?
Yeah, well, in general, I can tell you about Nokia, which is our biggest customers. There we have many different, how do you say, departments, where we introduce this, and we have also other companies. Not all want obviously to disclose what exactly they do, but yeah, if you can contact me, I can also tell you later in detail how this looks like. But overall, it's always the same pattern, right? You want to increase contribution, you look what you had before, you try this out, and you look what you have after. And then it's about people to accept it or not, because as I say, workshops have different kind of purposes, right? It's always a matter what you want to achieve in the end. If like the person deciding is not so much into this democratic way of expressing ideas, for example, then it will also be hard, right? But yeah, this is also, it's up to us, because we are the innovation experts, to bring in the new methodologies and to try to convince the stakeholders that this makes sense as one of the X tools that the company can use, right? So it does not make sense to use a hammer to how do you say, to use a screw, right? You need different tools for everything, and this is one valid alternative to perform what we currently do only on site or only via web meetings.